So over the last several years, A24 has become one of my favorite movie studios for many different reasons, but one in particular. They take risk. Love or hate their movies, they take risk on their filmmakers and their stories. So with that being said, we have a brand new A24 horror film. So what did I think about it? Let's find out. What is going on, movie fans, and welcome back to my channel, MovieFiles. Elliot here today to share with you all my review of the brand new A24 supernatural horror film by the name of Talk to Me. Now, this film premiered at Sundance, I want to say, and I heard nothing but great things about it. But the two things I heard was, it is the scariest film you'll go to see this year. It is the best horror film so far this year. So, hey, I have seen the film, and we're here to talk about it in today's spoiler-free review. But first, I want to talk to my horror fans. Let me know if you all were excited to see this film. But of course, once you've seen it, let's go ahead and talk about it. Do you personally believe that this is the scariest horror film so year, as well as the best horror film so far? But let's talk about the movie. Pros, cons, direction, story, performances. Were you scared while watching it? Were you disappointed by the film? And if you are a fan of A24 like I am, go ahead and share your top 3 A24 horror films that you have seen in the comments below. So let's kick things off, and I want to get this off my chest. Concept and the premise of this movie alone is worth seeing. I cannot stress enough how much I love the idea behind this movie. For those that aren't too familiar with the synopsis, it basically reads, when a group of friends discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand, they become hooked on the new thrill, until one of them goes too far and unleashes terrifying supernatural forces. Now, I know you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, that just sounds like they're using a Ouija board. And sure, there's some little connective tissues there, but it's how they use this embalmed hand and the lore and the mythology behind it is so cool. There's rules to it, right? Not giving too much away, but you can only conjure the spirit and touching the hand for only 90 seconds. And if you go longer than that, well, all hell breaks loose. And it's how the film uses that concept that I found to be so genius. Now, speaking of genius, let's talk about the first-time directors here. That is Danny and Michael Philippou, aka Rocka from YouTube. They really execute this wild idea and make it so grounded that you can believe that this could actually happen. They also know how to craft a dark, disturbing, creepy tone with a cleverness and a patience to really make you feel uncomfortable and nervous to see what's going to happen next. So I can't stress enough, very impressive directorial debut by the brothers, and I'm really excited to see what they do next. So speaking of next, let's talk about these performances who I thought were very believable. From the cast of teens who introduced our characters to this dark, demented hand, to the great Miranda Otto as a parent to one of our supporting characters. Very impressed by them all. But there's two performances that really stood out to me. Number one, we have an actor by the name of Joe Bird. Now, Joe plays a character by the name of Daniel, who's like a little brother to our main character, and he is in some of my favorite scenes in this film. Two in particular, very dark, very disturbing, and I loved every second of it. He is great in his role, but speaking of great, let's talk about the lead of this film, who goes by the name of Sophie Wilde, who plays Mia, who's recently lost her mother and is struggling to cope with that loss, and her trying to cope leads her down this very addictive path, and she's also trying to reconnect with her friends to kind of get her mind off of losing her mother, but she's also trying to reconnect with her mother. And it's in that premise right there that makes this film so unique, because I've seen 1,000,001 horror films, and I'll just use the haunted house as a trope, right? We see the family move into a haunted house. They know that stuff is going wild. There's demons, there's blood on the walls, craziness going on. But the whole cliche is, why don't they get the hell out of there the first time they come across something that's dark or twisted? The whole film is just like, well, we can't move because we have so much money in the house. And it's like, come on, dude, your life's on line. Get the hell out of there. So with this movie, you think to yourself, well, after 1 or 2 times of playing with this dark, demented, twisted hand, you might want to leave it alone. But going back to Mia, she's lost her mother, and she may or may not have found a way to reconnect with her. So I love the reason, the hook of why she's continuing to do it was so impressive to me. But going back to her performance, I really enjoyed the things we get to see her do here, from her dealing with the aftermath of her mother's death and the mystery behind the death, but also her playing a possessed character, which we see several times in this film. Excellent. This is the second best actress I've seen that played someone that's possessed, only behind Alyssa Sutherland from Evil Dead Rise, the mother of evil. But I thought Sophie was fantastic in this role. But a couple more points before we get into some of my criticisms that I want to mention here. Number one, I want to kind of talk about the scares and the emotions of the story. Regarding the horror elements, very effective. It didn't rely on jump scares or fake out scares, but genuinely plays with the fears of the situation, on talking to dead spirits and their bad intentions, and the fear of the unknown was done so well. Speaking of done so well, the practicality of the brutal scenes were just perfect. No CG. I mean, I'm sure they had some ways of kind of doing things in post-production, but for the most part, it looked very real, and I loved every element of the practicality. But also connecting to the horror film with a solid story underneath all the demonic elements of this film, it showcases the desires to fit in and trying to suppress grief and traumas, and replacing that with addictive thrills. Final points here, they play on one of my personal biggest fears in real life, and that is, even when it's summertime and it's 190 degrees outside, I sleep with a cover, right? And I got my feet covered. Reason being, one of my fears that this film plays on is I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night to find a demon sucking on my damn feet. Perfectly done in this film, but also, speaking of perfect, no spoilers whatsoever, but the ending of this movie was so satisfying because it has a callback to something that happens to our main character very early on in the film. I love a great callback, and it is so effective in this film. And last thing I'll mention about effective, not that runtimes justify what I think of a movie, but I think certain genres, when they pair up with a certain runtime and they tell their story in a certain runtime, to me fits really well. And this movie tells its 1.5 hour story in such a good way. Really good job on that part. So those are my main pros. Let's get into some of my criticisms that I have about the movie. Now, I will say, I personally really wish that the supporting characters would have been in the movie just a little bit more, because I really enjoyed them and I thought they were funny. And there's a couple moments in the film that you get a little bit of levity that I didn't expect, but I really enjoyed the supporting characters. But in particular, there's a level of guilt from the supporting characters introducing our characters to this hand, and I wish that that guilt had a little bit more consequences within the main narrative. But also, sticking to the supporting characters, I do wish they would have been more involved in the conclusion of the story. But getting back to our main character, Mia, again, I mentioned how the film focuses on why she's continuing to use this thing is because she has a connective tissue to, if I can talk to the dead, maybe I can talk to my mom. So there's purpose to why she's using it. The other characters, yes, they're teenagers, they're young, and we've all been young and done things before, whether it's messing with a Ouija board or whatnot. But besides that, which is, surface level, very relatable, I wish that their reasoning of why they're using this machine or using this thing over and over and over again, I wish it had a more purpose to it besides it being like thrilling, right? I wish there was more depth and more of a nuance to why they're using it that I wish was explored a little bit further. But also, I do want to mention, I do wish that there were more moments of seeing our characters being possessed and things going terribly wrong, because when it does go wrong in the film, it is very effective. And I just wish that we would have seen more of those. Things are going south really quickly. But one last point I'll mention, there's a plot involving Mia and her relationship with her father that I wish that was more developed and had a stronger chemistry, because I'll just say something happens in their relationship that's supposed to be impactful to her, and I felt like it didn't really hit me the way it was intended to. So I wish that their relationship was more developed, and I wish they had a little bit better chemistry. So before I give you all my overall score, I want to thank you all for sticking on to this point in the video. If you're enjoying the commentary so far, just a reminder, if you're having a good time, hit the like button, consider sharing, leave me your thoughts in the comments, and of course, consider subscribing to the channel. Overall, Talk to Me is another example of why I love A24 movies. The premise itself is worth watching this movie alone. Definitely has some very effective scares mixed in with some great practicality, strong story paired with some really great performances, especially from our lead actress, Sophie Wilde. This to me had a mixture of It Follows with shades of Hereditary, but it tells its own unique story with its own unique style and substance as well. I really do wish we would have had more possession scenes within this film, but overall, I really did enjoy this film, and I love this concept. I'm going to give Talk to Me a 4 out of 5, which I'm going to be honest, it's a higher number than when I initially saw this film. I was a little, I wouldn't say lukewarm, but I was like, oh, it's an okay film. But when I came home and I slept on it and I had my feet covered because I don't want a demon sucking on my toes, I really appreciated what this story was going for. Not only from a horror aspect, which I thought was done well, but it's a really rich story with a very satisfying conclusion. So again, 4 out of 5 from me, but now it's your turn. Talk to me and let me know what you thought of this film in the comments, from your favorite moments, least favorite moments. Share your top 3 A24 horror films in the comments. Thank you for watching today's review. Before we wrap this thing up, just a friendly reminder to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. That way you can stay up to date with all my daily reviews. As you can see on the screen now, consider checking out all my other reviews I've done so far. Check out my most recent review, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.